Derrida's Plato's Pharmacy reads Plato's Phaedrus very closely. Derrida finds that Plato's attack on writing is more complicated than it seems. Plato uses writing to attack writing. This creates a paradox. The word pharmacy is key. In Greek, pharmakon means both medicine and poison. It means remedy and poison at the same time. Derrida shows that Plato treats writing like a pharmakon. Writing can help memory. Writing can also harm memory. You cannot decide once and for all which one it is. The Phaedrus begins with a walk outside Athens. Socrates usually stays in the city. He does not like the countryside. Trees and open country teach him nothing. Only people in the city teach him. But Phaedrus has a speech hidden under his cloak. It is a written speech by Lysias. Socrates wants to hear it. He follows Phaedrus out of the city. He compares the written speech to a pharmakon. It is a drug that draws him out of his usual place. This is the first clue. Writing acts like a drug. It changes your behavior. It moves you from where you belong. Writing has power over you. Derrida notes the location. The two men stop by the river Ilissus. This is the place where, according to the myth, the virgin Orithyia was playing the Pharmacia. The north wind carried her away and she died. Pharmacia means a female poisoner or sorceress. The word is related to pharmakon. Even before the main argument, the text associates play, drugs, and death. The main discussion of writing comes at the end of the dialogue. Socrates tells a myth. The god Theuth invents writing. He also invents numbers, geometry, astronomy, and games. He brings his inventions to the king of Egypt, Thamus. Theuth says writing is a pharmakon for memory and wisdom. It will make Egyptians wiser and improve their memories. But Thamus disagrees. He says Theuth has said the opposite of the truth. Writing will produce forgetfulness. People will rely on external marks instead of their own memory. They will seem wise but will not truly know. They will have the appearance of wisdom, not truth itself. This is the core of Plato's argument against writing. Writing gives you hypomnesis, not mneme. Hypomnesis is reminding or recollection from external signs. Mneme is living memory, true memory from within. Writing gives you the poor copy, not the real thing. Derrida then focuses on a key phrase. Plato calls the living speech a son. It needs its father to attend it. The father is present. He can answer for the son. He can defend him. Writing has no father. It is an orphan. It cannot defend itself. It cannot answer questions. It just sits there saying the same thing over and over. This is a powerful metaphor. But Derrida shows it is not just a metaphor. The father-son relation is not something we understand first and then apply to speech. Rather, we understand fatherhood through speech. A father is a father because he speaks. Without speech, the relation is just cause and effect. A father is a father because he can say, I am your father. So the metaphor goes both ways. Speech helps us understand fatherhood. Fatherhood helps us understand speech. Neither is simply original. They depend on each other. Plato also compares the father to the son and to the good. The good is the origin of all beings, but you cannot look at the good directly. It blinds you. You can only look at its offspring, its son. The son, S-U-N, is the son, S-O-N, of the good in the visible world. Speech is the son of the good in the intelligible world. Writing is therefore a son of a son. It is twice removed from the origin. It is a sign of a sign. This makes it dangerous, but it also makes it necessary. You cannot reach the origin directly. You always need supplements. Derrida introduces the concept of supplementarity. A supplement adds something, but it also replaces something. It fills a lack. This is the structure of the pharmacon. Writing is a supplement to memory. It adds to memory, but it also replaces memory. If you have writing, you do not need to remember. So, writing both helps and harms. Plato tries to keep these two sides separate. He wants to say writing is only bad, it only produces forgetfulness. But his own argument shows otherwise. Theuth offers writing as a remedy. Thamus calls it a poison. The word pharmakon holds both together. Derrida shows that the same logic appears in the Timaeus. There, Plato discusses medical drugs. He says natural disease should run its course. Drugs interfere with nature. They make things worse. They irritate the disease instead of curing it. But this argument already admits that drugs have power. They can change things. They are not simply nothing. The pharmacon is neither good nor bad in itself. It is ambiguous. Its effect depends on use, context, and dosage. You cannot fix its meaning once and for all. Plato's attack on writing is also an attack on the sophists. The sophists sell knowledge, they teach for money, they use written speeches, they claim to know everything, but they only have the appearance of knowledge. Socrates mocks the sophist Hippias. Hippias boasts about his memory. He can repeat 50 names after hearing them once. But this is not true wisdom, it is just mechanical recall. It is hypomnesis, not mneme. Yet the sophists also argue against writing. They say living speech is better. It can adapt to the moment, it can respond to questions, but writing is rigid and dead. So Plato borrows arguments from his enemies. He uses sophist arguments against the sophists. This shows the problem. You cannot simply oppose philosophy to sophistry. They share the same concepts, they fight over the same ground. The difference is subtle, it is almost impossible to see. Derrida spends many pages on Egyptian mythology. This may seem strange, but he has a reason. Plato's myth of Theuth is not invented from nothing. Theuth is the Greek name for the Egyptian god Thoth. Thoth is the god of writing. He is also the god of magic, medicine, and death. He is the scribe of the gods. He records everything. He weighs the souls of the dead. He invents numbers and calculation. Thoth is a subordinate god. He serves the sun god Ra. Ra is the king, the father, the origin. Thoth is the messenger, the secretary, the technician. He executes what Ra thinks. But Thoth also replaces Ra. When Ra is absent, Thoth takes his place. He becomes the moon when the sun goes down. He supplements the sun. He is both the same and different. He is the other of the sun, but also its substitute. This is the logic of the pharmacon again. Thoth is neither simply inside nor simply outside. He is the supplement. He occupies the place of the other. He has no proper place of his own. Thoth is also the god of death. He presides over embalming and burial. He records the judgment of souls. Writing and death go together. In the Phaedrus, Plato compares writing to painting. Both are like living beings. But if we ask them a question, they just repeat themselves. They cannot answer. They cannot defend themselves. They are dead. Living speech is different. It can respond. It can adapt. It knows when to speak and when to be silent. It is like a living person. But Derrida asks, is living speech really alive? Can it really answer? In the Phaedrus, Socrates is the one speaking, but Plato wrote the dialogue. Socrates is a character, the real author is absent. The living speech is already written. Plato cannot escape writing. He writes against writing. He uses written words to condemn written words. This is the pharmacy at work. The remedy is also the poison. The cure is also the disease. Derrida concludes that the difference between speech and writing is not clear. It is not a simple opposition, it is a difference within each term. Speech already has the structure of writing. It repeats itself. It uses signs and can be absent from its origin. Plato wants to decide, he wants to say speech is good and writing is bad. He wants to put each in its proper place. But the pharmacon resists this decision. It is neither good nor bad. It is both at once. It is a condition of possibility for the decision, but also the condition of impossibility. The pharmacon is what Derrida calls an undecidable. It is not that we cannot decide, we decide all the time. But the decision is not grounded in a stable opposition. It is made in the face of an ambiguity that cannot be resolved. Derrida ends the essay by noting that Socrates himself is called a pharmakon. In the Symposium, Diotima describes Eros. Eros is a magician, a sorcerer, a pharmacus. He is neither god nor man. He is a demon, a mediator. This description fits Socrates. Socrates is a pharmakon. He poisons the young men with questions. He cures them of their ignorance. He does both at once. He cannot be classified. He is neither inside nor outside the city. He is the gadfly, the irritant, and the supplement. This is the final irony. The man who speaks against writing is himself a pharmakon. The man who defends living speech is a drug. The opposition collapses. The pharmacy is everywhere. What do we learn out of Derrida's reflection on Plato's pharmacy? First, the pharmakon means both medicine and poison. This ambiguity is structural. You cannot reduce it to one side. Second, writing is a supplement. It adds to memory but also replaces it. It both helps and harms. Third, Plato's opposition between speech and writing is unstable. Speech already has the structure of writing. Writing already has the power of speech. Fourth, the myth of Theut is not a simple story. It connects writing to the god, Thoth. Thoth is the god of supplements, substitutions, and death. Fifth, the difference between philosophy and sophistry is not clear. They share the same concepts, they fight over the same ground. Finally, deconstruction is not deconstruction. It does not say Plato is wrong. It shows that his system depends on what it excludes. Writing is the excluded other, but it returns everywhere. It is a condition of possibility of speech, memory, and truth. Derrida's Plato's Pharmacy is a foundational text for deconstruction. It shows how Western philosophy has tried to exclude writing. It shows that this exclusion always fails. Writing comes back. It was always already there. The pharmakon is a model for this logic. You cannot decide once and for all what it means. It holds opposites together. It disrupts every simple opposition. This does not mean we cannot think. It does not mean we cannot decide. It means we must think and decide without the comfort of stable foundations. We must act in the pharmacy. We must take the medicine, knowing it might be poison. We must write, knowing that writing might betray us. There is no safe place outside the pharmakon.